Welcome to the channel, Firebird Tech, and my name is Nick. Today is going to be a gear kit tour, or tour of my setup here. I am in a dorm, so the room is fairly small, so there's going to be some handy cam work, so not all nice tripod work. Today we're going to go through what's on my bench here, what's on the bench behind you, what gear do I use, that sort of stuff, because I'll do it now before I get a bazillion questions about it later on in the YouTube channel. It means I can just reference people to this video and say this is the gear I've been using. Again, I may amend this 6-8 months down the line when I get new cameras or new computer gear or something like that. So yeah, today is just a gear tour, or what kit tour, whatever you used to call it, a room tour, whatever you used to call it. So excuse the maybe mediocre lighting that maybe happened today. But yeah, we're going to go around the room, look at what gear I use, laptops, monitors, other gear, other computers I have lying around. And after that we'll come back here and go through some stuff that I've got through and all that stuff. So let's get to it. Okay, part 2 of this video is my main desk. So we'll just go around the room and then we'll probably do a bit more specifics. So I've got my chair, my now outdated headphones, my reference speakers which are hung to the roof, which we'll get to more when we talk about sound, and my headphones are over in that region. You see 3 out of the 4 peripherals. I have 2 mice and 2 keyboards hooked up to this computer, which we'll go into more detail when we actually talk about the individual peripherals. You see the 3 monitors across here and the laptop. And this space here is where I filmed a lot of the content on the bench footage I used for the Sony Vaio review, which will be linked in the description below. And you see joystick, scanner, and my printer up here with all the equipment required all sits up in this little hollow up here. Not to mention the second light, which is just off frame. Other thing which we will go just to the top drawer of this, which is my everyday tool chest, the tools I reach for on a daily basis when I don't want to go over to bench number 2, which we'll do a tour of later, because that crazy I need 2 desks. So let's go. So the chair I'm sitting in right now is an IKEA chair, again, that I bought for, I would have no idea, I have no idea what the name of it because I've had it for that long, but it served me well. I've pretty much killed the padding in it, I've sat in that much. So that's my chair, pretty simple. It's comfortable sitting for 6 hours, and that's all that mattered to me when I bought the chair 3 years ago. One pair of the headphones you see are very cheap LD headphones that I bought as an intro mean. They're Fusion headphones from LD. I think they're like $10. The 2 you see up here, which are strapped to the roof. Well, I think they just had a frame. No, you can see one of them in this one. They're strapped to the top of the roof here. They're dual dynamic drivers. Pretty flat bass, pretty flat overall frequency response. Great for monitoring sound. That's what I do with my final sound test on, like levels and tones and all that stuff is done on these 2 speakers. My headphones that I use daily for like listening to music on my smartphone, through to basic audio recording, even mic recording on this thing. These little headphones. We'll do a bit of a zoom in on these. If we can get a. Come on, I know you can do it. DSLRs, there we go. You guys are not going to be able to see that. But they're CX275S little earbuds. Where's our focus length? Way back at me. Like, they're little earbuds. Very nice ID, simple as ID to them. They're a headset. They're like the Sennheiser universal headsets, are like $80. Kind of nice little headphone. Little 4-pole jack. Comes with the adapter to go to iPhones and stuff like that, which I probably have sitting around somewhere. Which I'm probably not going to go through that drawer to find. Yeah, nah, screw that idea. So those little headphones, they're my daily driver headphones, the things I use practically every day. We'll refocus the desk. Come on, you can do it. There we go. So yeah, that's my sound system. These are actually hooked up to the Asus STX sound card that I have in Blood, or my main rig, which we'll get into more detail later on in the video. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pick up the camera, I'm I'm going to put you guys here so you guys can see a bit more of the desk, and we'll go through peripherals individually. We'll go through the monitors, the keyboards, the mice, what's actually on the desk. So I'll do that right now. So oh, that worked out rather well. Here we go. So first up on the list of components. Sorry about that, guys. The camera overheated partway through the transmission. As I was saying, we're going to go through the technology that's on this desk. So we'll start from that end and go around to finish with the laptop, and that's pretty much it. So we'll start off with the phone I use as my daily driver, which is the HTC One M7. So not the new one, not the new one. It's the older one that came out last year now, to come think of it. You see 3 out of 4 of the peripherals. I'll bring in the other keyboard, which is handily off frame, and I'll go through why I use 2 keyboards and 2 mice. Now, so first of the 2 mice is the Logitech M570 trackball. This is used because I have a pretty dodgy wrist, and it means I can use this mouse for 6 hours at a time and not do anything with my wrist. So we'll give a nice little close-up of that for everyone. In focus shot. So we have the Logitech M570. Again, wireless. Well, first of the many wireless peripherals I have. Okay, the other mouse I use. So the trackball is used for general purpose stuff. If I'm web browsing, if I'm playing something like Space Engineers, Kerbal Space Program, I use that mouse. But something like a bit more actiony, like Bioshock Infinite or StarCraft 2 for gaming, or doing stuff like video editing or AutoCAD work, I use this little mouse. This is the MX Revolutions, or Revolution, I believe it is pronounced. Where is the name menu? Yeah, it's the MX Revolution in Bluetooth. Again, wireless and a fairly nice mouse. I've actually got the other wheel set up as my volume toggle, which is really handy. So I click it, it mutes. If I unclick it, it unmutes and volume down, volume up, which is really handy. It's really handy. So I use the MX Revolution for precision work, fairly precision work. The first of the 2 keyboards which I'll go through is the other wireless, number 3 of my wireless peripherals, which I do not know if I can get in frame, and my battery's going to go flat. But it is the MX 5500 keyboard. It is the companion to the MX Revolution's mouse. So pretty standard layout, mushy keys, but meh. It's a non-mechanical wireless keyboard like you expect. The other keyboard I've got, which we're going to have to refocus for because I'm not going to lift it up, is the only wired keyboard or wired peripheral I have, and that is the X6 Sidewind. How far can I bring this out? Oh, I can bring it out pretty far actually. Come on, focus. Okay, this is pretty standard thoroughfare, although the detachable numpad that almost never works on this side because I've used it that much, but this doesn't work on this side. So for someone who's left-handed, numpad on the left makes no difference. It's again non-mechanical. It's got a much nicer feel to it, like mushy. It's still a mushy keyboard, still a membrane keyboard like the MX5500, except it's a much better feeling keyboard. It's why I use it for typing and doing everything with. So I'm gonna have to turn this camera off because the battery's going flat again. Go fig. That's what I do for doing long videos. After we come back, I'll go through monitor 1, monitor 2, and monitor 3. And we'll go through laptop and the bench and everything else that's here. And then after that, we'll go around to the cubby hole. Sorry, no. We'll go over to the second bench because I'm crazy enough to have 2 benches because I need it. And then we'll go over around to the cubby hole, which is all the way off frame. It's way down into here. And then after that, we'll go to the case. Big blood down there. And after that, we'll go to our conclusion. So I'll see you back after I recharge the battery. So we're back. Laptops first. So Sony Vaio 515A practically sits here when I'm here away from uni. It's, again, I'll link the overview, review and teardown of this laptop in the video description below. those likes and comment, the like button and the subscribe button below. So, on to our first monitor. This little portrait monitor here, the Dell. I would have no clue of the model number or anything like that. It's a fairly old monitor now. It's a 15-inch 1280 by 1024 monitor. It's CCFL, so really not that efficient. I don't like to keep it on too long because it does get rather warm. It does have an inbuilt USB hub. I don't know if you guys can see that, but there is a USB stick hanging out top of it. That's the wireless receiver for the mouse and keyboard that I do use. I do actually use this USB hub a lot. And the one on the rear of this has 2 ports on the top and 2 ports behind. 2 ports behind actually has my phone charging lead and a few other things hanging off of it at practically all times. So, next monitor over. I do know the model number of this one. It is the Asus or Asus Asus VE248 monitor. It's a 1080p monitor. Pretty stock standard TN panel, 60 Hz, right. Standard. The one here is pretty much the same thoroughfare. 1920 by 1080, 24 inches, 60 Hz. Standard thoroughfare, TN panel, go fig. Nothing out of the ordinary. This one I did add a... we're completely off frame. Hang up. That way. So, I have added a USB hub to the side of this one for prototyping and stuff like that, just to make things easier. It has a 4-amp charger connected up to the 4-amp plug pack connected to it, so it's just nice and easy for using like that. Now, most people may ask, why is this monitor here in portrait mode, and that's because of A4 worksheets. I'll zoom in and explain more why. Oop, too far. That'd be nice, not going to focus because of that. Doop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doo. Thank you. Okay, so the reason why this is in portrait mode is if you take a standard A4 sheet of paper and you put it on the monitor, it leaves a bit of room around all sides. This is because all of my uni work online is processed, uploaded, and comes out in an A4 form factor. So it's just really good having that monitor up on the side that I can throw uni work up onto, and it's just really easy to use. So that's the justification why that one's in portrait. These two are in landscape because it's the best viewing idea around them, and everything just works in portrait mode. I wouldn't mind actually, this is something for the video to note, seriously, why can't you do surround with 2 displays? Come on. Just come on. So I would love to put these two together itself, but yeah. And a lot of other people will go, why the hell do you have 3 monitors? It's actually quite handy, because this one here is, when I'm doing uni work, is usually full of the assignment I've got meant to do, so I've always got the assignment there, so I know what I'm meant to be completing with the assignment. Otherwise, yeah, it's got my Steam library on it, or a web browser. This one here is what I do, practically, it's my main monitor. It is actually monitor 1 when you go into like preferences and settings and everything like that. Then I have this one here, which I mainly use for my widgets, as you can see up there. So I've got CPU, GPU, drives, time, and network stuff on there. Also, it's used for like when I'm doing folding at home, so that's why the icons are down in the middle. Sorry about the cut there too. But yeah, that's that. As we go around the bench a bit more, this portion here, as you'll see in the Sony Vaio review, overview, review, and teardown, it's what I call the bench. It's this bit here, with the secondary light hanging off the roof. If we go back up to this little setup up here, we see my Samsung printer, freebie, the Canon scanner, freebie, and my joystick, which is a Logitech Extreme 3D Pro, which was like literally 25 bucks. I may actually do a bit of a review, ID conclusions on that. And my 2 speakers up here, which I kind of did cover, but I probably didn't cover enough when I did the sound overview. These 2 speakers were freebies. They originally had these really weird dust covers on them that made a horrible rattling sound, so I took them off. And they're really nice speakers, actually. They are pretty neutral speakers. They're pretty flat frequency response. They're a nice reference speaker, is what I'd say. I don't usually play games on it, but I do prefer to watch movies on it because it's got the punch that's provided by the sound card that's in Blood, or my main rig behind me. So I think we'll now cut to bench number 2, because I'm an electrical engineering student, so I do actually need 2 benches. We'll probably go more into this in the outro and conclusion and all that. And then after the bench video, we'll go over around to the cubby hole. Once we go from the cubby hole, we'll come back to blood, and we'll go through a complete overview, opening the side of the cage, going through blood, and going through how I built it and why it's still a work in progress. As you'll see about the kind of crazy, not in a good way, crazy water cooling that's going on in there. So we'll now move to bench number 2. Okay, as I was saying, this is the top drawer of the 3-drawer unit that was just off camera before. This has, as I was saying, screwdrivers in here, general drill bits and odd sorts in there, other parts and caboodles in here, other tech, some work gloves for doing stuff, CD-ROMs that I use, some trinkets, and mainly this is the drawer. This is the section I use so much. There's monitor leads in here, there's sound cables in here, there's, that needs to go over here. That needs to go over in my collection. I've just got oddball cables that are sort of just one to the other cables. Yeah, that's my general drawer full of stuff that I use on a fairly consistent basis. The second drawer, which is my heaviest drawer, contains all my spare wiring. So wiring I've salvaged from dead power supplies through to the rest of the modular leads for my power supply, reels of wire, even crimps for like telecom cabling, and then the third one is mainly coax leads and AC mains leads, plus any floppy drives I've managed to collect over the time. So that is my tool chest in a very quick way. Yeah, so there we go. That's the last part of my bench. So we'll move on to bench number 2. Okay, part 2. This is my secondary bench, what I do a lot of my teardowns on when I'm not doing it on the other bench where I film stuff on. This is just generally my general workbench for electrical engineering. So, pretty standard thoroughfare, vice down just out of frame, down here. There's a G-clamp on the other side just for fastening stuff down to the bench. I have a power supply here, 30 volts, 3 amps, pretty standard thoroughfare, which we may torture a motor on that later. We may torture a motor. I'm probably going to get flagged for that, but freeze a DC motor in the freezer overnight and pump 30 volts through it. Makes a nice amount of steam. These are all my components in here. So everything from transistors, diodes, resistors, electrical capacitors, ICs, switches, all sorts of things for building circuits. I have my test power board here for just plugging in mains, test equipment, plugging in laptop chargers when I'm working on laptops on this bench. The only thing that's missing right now because it's out being loaned to someone is my soldering iron would normally sit in this little, this little hollow here. It's a little soldering station. I believe it is a Duratec TS 1564. Yeah, 1564 from JCar in Australia. Up all along here, what we'll do is we'll move the camera up. There we go. We see all my pliers and side cutters and pens and some clip leads and all that, and then just a general storage of parts up here with my mag glasses and my Dremel stuff. And just a general inspection light here as well, for just getting up close with a nice bright light source. But that is the second bench. So now we'll cut to the third part of my bench, which is what I call my little cubby hole, which will have a few extra rigs and a few extra bits of equipment I want to show you guys. So we'll cut to that now. Right, part 3 of this little tour of my room. This is a little corner I call my cubby hole, or general storage for machines. So we have a little box I built from spare parts collected from a university that I was throwing out for free, all except the RAM, which I had to buy off online. The big server here was again another freebie that I had to buy RAM for. So $2,400 server that they threw out for free. Go fig. We won't go into specs of that at all, unless people request it in the comments below. And the middle one here is a UPS. I will link the eBay link where I bought this from. Came from a Melbourne seller, which means me living in Melbourne, it cost me shit next to nothing to post via courier, which is really nice. It was also to my door $250 for a 1000 VA smart UPS with no front cover, which doesn't really affect anything, and a set of 4 fresh batteries, like completely fresh batteries. So really nice. Yeah, $250, go fig. So that's this little cubby hole. You see all my, you probably can see some of the boxes at the back for storing of technology and all that stuff. But that's a little cubby hole for storing random assortments of gear. So next we will go to our conclusion. Oh no, we won't go to conclusion. We'll go to an in-depth look at the main rig, and then from that we'll go to conclusion. So we'll cut to the main rig. Okay, so this is part 4 of this video. So this is blood, or what I'm calling blood because it's literally drawn my blood more times than I can count. So we'll go through specs of this right now. Also, I apologize in advance for the rather crappy lighting of this video. So it is powered by an Intel 3820, clocked at 4.2 GHz. It's quad-core, 8-thread, octa-thread if you want to go that far. 16 gig of system memory running at 1833 megahertz. It's a 660 Ti graphics card in it. That's overclocked to just over a gigahertz for memory. It is in a Cooler Master half-X case, and is water cooled by a 4x120mm rad, which you can just see just here. This is the 4x120mm rad, which is currently floating because if I move the camera down a bit, I broke the 2 front wheels when I was moving around. So yeah, it's sitting on a 2x4 right now. Go fig, or 1x4 I think, or 1x3. Yeah. Anyway, lump of timber for the front. So what we'll do is we'll come around to the front. So I'll just pick up the camera and move you around to the front. Here we'll go through what's on the front. So, and we'll refocus. And you're probably not going to be able to focus on it, are you? No, there you go. So at the bottom, down here, we have a single 200mm fan. Actually the stock fan hasn't even moved from that slot. And excuse the dustiness of the case because I haven't actually cleaned out this case in a fairly long while. We have a little fan controller here, which I also use for dimming and brightening my lights inside the case. That was a little mod I made. There. Why does this camera keep stopping on me? I will never know. If you know why it's stopping, then leave it in the comments below. We have my pump and res combo. Oh, sorry, I should mention what this is. It's a scythe. What is it? I have the box in hand. It is a Scythe KM03-BK, or Kazmaster Pro, is its full name. Fan controller, a 6-way fan controller. So yeah, the first one controls my CPU fans at the back, which I'll hear rev up. Or maybe not, depending on how good this microphone is. The second, on number 2 channel, is my lights, which you can see doing all funky stuff in the background. Although I like to keep them low because they highlight stuff better in the case. Number 3 isn't actually connected to everything right now. Number 4, I believe, is my top fan, so the fan way back up in here. Number 5 is the side fan. Oh, sorry. Number 5 I think is the front fan. Yeah, number 5 is the front LED red fan, which you can just see up frame here. And number 6 is this side one here. As we move up, dual pump res, as I was talking about before, it is a Coolance RP450X2 with 2 pumps running in series because the amount of head pressure required to pump water all the way back to the back of the rig. We have a couple of freebays up here. You see my ambient temperature probe sticking out the front of the case, just hanging in the breeze. And you see my DVD drive. Yes, I still use optical media. Just don't go there. We see just one of my USB devices hanging out the front here. This headphone plugged in for the time being because it's easier. We also see the receiver for the M570 plugged in for the time being, because I do use that at uni and stuff like that. And then you've got the little control panel at the front. So yeah. So we'll go back into the bench under here. We'll take off his side panel, and we'll go through what's underneath the case, or what's truly inside it, and the crazy water cooling that's going on inside this thing. I do not mean crazy in a good way. It is definitely a work in progress rig. I'll say that much right now. Give me 2 seconds. Get that off frame. So, as you can see, this rig has not been cleaned out in a fairly long while. So we'll move from front to back. We'll go through storage first. As I was talking about, the optical disc drivers up here, two blank drives, dual pump rails, and fan control at the bottom. In these drives, I don't actually have 6 hard drives in. These are just in here so I don't lose them, and they also kind of complete the ID a bit. My main primary drive is an Intel 830. Yes, 830. Sorry. It's an Intel SSD anyway. It's one of the SAN4 BIOS drives. It's faster than a mechanical hard drive, and it was cheap. And then I have 2 mechanical drives that I've salvaged from other rigs. A 1 terabyte that used to be an external USB hard drive, salvaged it, put it in here. And there's also a 400 gig, pretty much the same principle, salvaged, put it in here. So that's the storage solution. None of this is in RAID, none of this is all together. It's 3 individual volumes on the computer itself. And then I have a little lead here for testing other hard drives, and and as I was saying before the camera cut, there's also a SATA power lead here, which is just off a Molex, so if I want to plug in a Molex power or this one, I can do either. And I hope this camera doesn't cut again. So now we're going to move through I'll zoom in on this section and we'll go through this section. So we'll bring the camera in, and we'll keep that zoomed out. Might turn off the lights. It's going to work just fine. So as you can see, this here is actually the water outlet, so the water comes through here, all the way through this grommet, all the way out to the back res, and then comes back into this top block here, and then comes out of here into some funky stuff which we'll probably get a close-up of. That goes then into a valve which goes into the block, and then goes through the block, out through this tube back into the res, and you'll notice that this actual tube is flat, because the amount of head pressure on it has actually vacuumized it and actually made it flat. Not because of the kinks or anything like that. It's just purely the amount of pressure in this system has physically sucked this thing flat. The thing that's why this is also crazy in the middle here is because I didn't realize, because I'm using half inch ID tubing with a 3/4 inch OD, so super wide, thick ass tubing. The block I'm using, which is a Heat Killer Revision 3 for the LGA 2011 platform. Doesn't really support the spacing between the 2 holes. The bottom and the top hole aren't far enough apart to allow compression fittings or really any form of half-inch fittings in the water block. So yeah, that's why that's all crazy. But I'll fix that with angled fittings and everything anyway later. As I said, work in progress rig. The RAM I'm using is some Ripjaw Z modules. It's a 4x4 kit. It's actually rated up to 2133, but right now I'm just running at 1833 because it's the maximum stock memory speed of the 3820 that's in it, which will probably get removed and replaced with a 4820K or a 4830, 4860K or 4860 when I get money. So that's that little setup. One thing I should note is the motherboard I'm using is a GA or Gigabyte X79 UD7. That will be getting replaced because the BIOS on that thing is just a pain to work with. It's built for overclockers, not someone who actually wants to make a stable rig that wants to last 3 years. Unfortunately, I've had some serious issues with that board. Even just trying to update BIOS is just a pain. But anyway, that's the motherboard. Graphics card in here is just an air-cooled ASUS Strix-C to 660 Ti, 2 gig of VRAM. Yeah. Pretty standard thoroughfare. Just below that you'll see the sound card, which is the ASUS Zona, so Zona with an X, STX, so again, nice card. That was primarily because I can't use the onboard sound of this motherboard because it's not shielded from all the pump noise. These pumps put out an insane amount of EM noise over the power. It's just, again, it was a must too. Then you probably see this little tiny green LED at the bottom here, which is actually part of this wireless card. Because I'm living in a dorm, only way they give you internet is via a Wi-Fi hotspot, which is a pain in the ass. I hate having that wireless chip in there because I want to have this sound card all the way down the bottom. just for ventilation for this card, but you got to do what you got to do. So that's just temporary. That's actually not part of the rig. That's just completely temporary for the time being. Just at the bottom we have the power supply, which is an OCZ killer power supply, rated at 750 watts, 80 plus bronze. You can go look it up if you want to have a look at it. It is semi-modular and all that, so go fig. Don't mind this fan here. It's actually meant to be mounted against this backboard, but there is a bracket mount that goes off this that holds the radiator up on this back mount. As I was saying before, with this plank of wood that's holding my front up here, it's not high enough off the ground. It's not high enough off the ground to allow this radiator to be fixed to the back, which is how this fan gets attached to the back of the case and acts as an exhaust fan, a 120mm exhaust fan. So that's why the fan's just sitting there blowing air just gently out the back. You've also noticed the orange lighting. That's actually a Phoebus, or it's an LED strip anyway, a standard LED strip. So I'll just bring you in close to have a look at the craziness that is my water cooling, and I'll go through this a bit better. I don't really want to focus on that. I want to focus probably about there. There we go. So this is the inlet to the block. So you've got the inlet tube coming in here. It goes through a T-joint, which I've sealed off one end to make a right angle joint to stop this thing kinking here. This then goes through a very short bit of tubing here, which actually goes into a valve, which is all I open right now because I'm not bleaching the rig. That then goes through a male-to-male connector in here into the block. It then comes out of the block with another fitting which is actually a compression fitting with no ring on it, because there's like literally no room there. And that goes back out. As you can see, this tube is effectively flat because of the vacuum pressure on it that's drawing the water back inside the loop. It doesn't help that I'm not using correct tubing or anything like that, but it's this will get fixed. This will get fixed, don't worry. It won't stay like this for very long. It is why my idle temperatures sit around 33 to 35 degrees C at all times, and not 20 degrees or about 25 like my room temp is right now. So yeah, and yeah, my wiring over here is primarily just because of all how I had to mod the LEDs in, because this LED strip that's up out of frame here comes off a 2-pin header. It's just like 2 pins. So I had to mod that 2-pin cable into something that the fan controller would accept, so I could dim the fan or dim the lights as I would dim a fan. This is so I can actually turn the lights off or make them as bright as I want, or anywhere in between if I wanted to. This is primarily because this is in my room. It's effectively in my bedroom, so I don't want this really bright glowing light under my desk at all times, but at 12 volts. So it also helps to just highlight and make the rig look a lot better, because if I take the camera out to here and zoom out a bit, and what we do is we turn the lights off, or we turn the lights too bright. I find when the lights are too bright, it highlights way too much of the tubing here. The tubing almost gives off a glow, but when you turn the light back to about here, it just makes the whole rig a bit more subtle, and I personally prefer it as that sort of brightness. Again, it's a personal preference, but yeah, again, each to their own. So that's Blood as it sits as of 2014, or April 2014. It will be getting modded. This will be getting water cooled, and this will be getting fixed, and all this will get fixed when I get money. Again, when one gets money. So yeah, that's Blood. So we're going to move on to our conclusion now, and my thoughts and other questions that people may ask me that I'm going to answer, and all of that. So we're going to cut to the bench. Well, talk for you. Right, the last part of this video is about the gear I've omitted or couldn't fit into the video. I didn't really want to cover it in full. But yeah, and some of the restraints about the set I'm in, the restraints of how I film. So first thing about the gear I've omitted, or the two things I've omitted from this gear list, is the camera, which I'm using right now, the Canon EOS 600D, or also known as the Rebel T3i. The light I'm using, which is over that way, is just a standard desk lamp that has a big fat fluoro tube in it. It works quite well. It's bright, it does the job. Other gear that I didn't get to include or didn't want to cover in full, I have a whole box of parts off camera. plus some other rigs sitting around that I didn't bother covering in full because they're not something I actually use as per se, as part of the filming or part of anything else. They're not what I consider daily parts of my gear. So yeah, there's a few bits. There's a whole bunch of computer parts, old motherboards, CPUs, RAM, some old network gear that I've had lying around, bits of old cases that come in useful, like interchangeable pieces of cases, that sort of thing. Old fan mounts are even in there. There's also some old tech, like old speakers that are really quite crummy. That sort of stuff just lying around. There's a couple of rigs sitting around, a couple of Linux rigs sitting around. You saw one of them in the room tour in the piggy hole. The other gear that I didn't want to include was my iMac, because you've seen that already in some detail. Again, it's an old rig that I keep around. Now, some of the restraints when filming in the setting I'm in a university dorm room, so those who are university students will know what I mean when I say my room is like a prison cell and I'm trying to film video inside it. It's quite a small room. So there's some restraints about like how big my frame is right now, because it's like yay big, and stuff like that. There's limitations in where I can film, what times I can film, and why sometimes something's get omitted from film because I either don't have the time, or someone entrusts me halfway through a cut and then I forget to put it in the next cut, or next time I try to do it. So there's a lot of stuff like that in a unidorm, and me living in a unidorm and all that. So yeah, that's some of the restraints. Lighting is always a concern. Desk space is always a concern. That's why I have two desks, as you've seen in this tour. One purely for electronics work and purely for computer work. Yeah, so again, there's some restraints and limitations, as always. And this is why I'm only going to do a video once a week or once a fortnight, because again, I've got uni work to do, so. Anyway, so that's enough about this video, enough about my gear. Again, any questions you want to ask, put them in the comments below. If you want to see specific bits of gear, like a full review on, let's say, the server blade, or how I build up my Linux rigs, that sort of thing, leave it in the comments below. And as always, like, comment, and subscribe. And share if you really want to. So, thank you for watching.